Hello and welcome to Focus. The economic crisis has put US President Barack Obama in a very difficult position. His popularity is down and his opponents, the Republicans, are cashing in on a massive voter discontent. But there are a lot of other issues making Tuesday's midterm elections rather interesting. A decision by the country's Supreme Court to relax campaign spending rules means that Obama's fight to hang on to the Senate and House has turned into the most expensive midterm in history. Both the Democrats and the Republicans will have spent nearly $4 billion, just $3 billion less than in the presidential campaign back in 2008. And as our correspondents have been finding out, that money is being used for a no-holds-barred race to power.
With his chiseled good looks and 26-year tour of duty as a U.S. Marine, Admiral Joe Sestak entered Pennsylvania's U.S. Senate race with a sterling resume. But over the past several months, he's been hit by a deluge of negative publicity, labeling him as a radical leftist who voted for a $500,000 study on ants.
Laughably liberal.
The masterminds behind these attack ads belong to the Club for Growth, a conservative group that, thanks to a decision handed down by the Supreme Court in January, can now receive unlimited funds, a break from the closely regulated donation practices of years past.
The special interest groups, Wall Street, Chamber of Commerce, big corporations, billionaires have poured tons of money trying to make this election into an auction so they can have their own senator.
Corporations and unions have always had the right to fund U.S. political campaigns, but the new rules permit them to give to front groups that in some cases don't have to disclose who's writing the checks, a trend denounced by Democrats.
You know, they call themselves Americans for Apple Pie or Moms for Motherhood. And then they use their voice to drown out yours.
Democrats also receive support from special interest groups who fund attack ads. But conservative organizations are much better financed and sometimes spend more than the candidates on close races.
If you're in a state that is very competitive and being targeted by these millions, even tens of millions of dollars, what it looks like for you is a constant barrage of messages on your television, on your radio. If you pick up your newspaper, certainly you're seeing ads all the time. You're getting mailers in your mailbox.
With this surge in non-regulated funds, Republicans and Democrats could be spending $3.7 billion during this election season, making it the most expensive in history.
Well, Paul Valley, Assistant Professor at the American Graduate University in Paris and Sciences Po here in Paris. Sorry, get that right. Joyce me now in the studio. Hello, welcome to France 24. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, first of all, I want to ask, why did the Supreme Court change the rules in the first place?
Well, the argument that led to this January decision was actually a 5-4 vote, an extremely slim majority, and the Chief Justice, John Roberts, cast the deciding vote. The basis for that argumentation is that basically the campaign donations have been linked to the First Amendment. That is, that there should be no regulation against free speech, and so donating to a political campaign is considered as a free speech. So there is no more regulation that is supposed to bar any kind of a limit or cap on this matter.
Okay, now we saw in that report just some of the changes in these midterm elections, the kind of impact that that decision has had. But how significant is the decision?
It does lead to a question, because there's also a Fair Elections Now bill that's been waiting in Congress for several years. And this one was actually meant to actually offer a cap on campaign financing, in particular by, of course, making it rely on public funds. And now, of course, with the spirit of this Supreme Court decision, such a bill is unlikely to pass unless the court's opinion ever gets overturned in a new case in a few years. Now, what we have is, of course, this is the first electoral campaign to take place since this unlimited amount of donations allowed under the Constitution. And what we've seen, in fact, the explosion of the spending in a large part because, of course, this has been perhaps much more than an electoral campaign. It's been a communications war between the two parties, and that relies mainly on buying airtime on television and radio.
And what about the division of spending? Because the Republicans are in opposition, you would think that they would have spent most money in trying to kind of garner support and the vote. Is that true, or is it the Democrats?
It's been the main argument by the Democratic Party since the court decision that this decision was essentially going to benefit to major corporate donations to the Republican Party. What we've seen now since is that in the end the two parties have actually managed to spend some equal amounts. That's in part due to the fact that perhaps the Democrats don't get as many corporate donations. They do have, however, a very good funding machine with the unions and with, of course, the useful exploitation of their small donors list, which was one of Barack Obama's main war chest funds during the campaign.
Okay, so spent fairly equal amounts, but we're talking $4 billion. Is that money well spent, do you think?
Well, in times of crisis, obviously, it seems quite amazing that such amount of money is actually spent, well, mainly on small television airtime, when precisely one of the biggest themes of the campaign is the soaring deficits. Obviously, this is a lot of money that could have been invested elsewhere.
And a lot of the adverts, in fact, very explicitly rubbishing their opponents on both sides. Do many Americans believe what they see on television?
Well, it's hard to say as well. It depends on the type of voter that you're targeting as well. So, of course, that's also one of the reasons for the explosion of the funds is that, of course, each of the ads has to be calibrated to some particular type of voter demographic, category, and so on, in order to make that ad more effective towards that voter and mobilizing those people to actually go vote as well. We tend to focus a lot on the negative advertising because it's reached tones that we're really unfamiliar with in Europe in particular, but it's something that we've seen before in American campaigns.
Okay, given this experience, we'll call it, with the unlimited funding, do you think the Supreme Court made a mistake, and do you think things will change in the future?
Well, hard to say whether the court itself is going to consider that it made a mistake. It may be quite a while until that majority, and it was a rather clear-cut party line majority in the court that led to this decision. So this may actually take quite a few years to overturn. Certainly, there are going to be some reflections tomorrow when we actually see the exact results. Again, what's to say whether, of course, it's rather public opinion that's expressed in these results much more than the amount of financing.
Okay,
so.
Paul Valley, we'll have to wait and see. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. That was today's edition of Focus. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.